Quinn, thank you so much for bringing your wisdom to the Natural Health Collaborative today. So, Quinn is a therapeutic coach and personal advisor.
Thank you, Cindy. It's lovely to be here.
Great. Now, you speak about inner luxury and
hmm
the quiet power. What does that transformation look like in your clients when they begin to live with that grounded, wiser place?
Well, thanks. That's a lovely question. And I just started to play with the word inner luxury because, the word luxury is just, it feels rich, it feels expensive. And what if we felt like that on the inside, regardless of what's happening in the outside world? And so that inner luxury is just a nice feeling, is that, that cashmere sweater kind of feel, that cup of warm tea in our hands. And so when we have that really nice feeling on the inside, that is true inner luxury. So we all have access to that moment to moment. And most of us don't know how to tap into that. So that's what I work with clients, is help them see how to tap into it more of the time. And when they do come off balance, they know how to get back on again. So it becomes a sustainable feeling.
So you're really helping people with practical ways to reset themselves?
Yes, well, it's insight-based learning. So I don't teach techniques or strategies because there's a lot of them out there, as you know, and everybody's different. And I also know for myself, some days certain techniques or practices work well, and other days it doesn't, and I use something different. So I like that flexibility. So I depend more on my wisdom. And I really, because every choice we make in terms of a practice or a technique begins with a thought. And so I help people understand the power of thought and the nature of thought so that they can really use it to their benefit. Because it's easy to go down the rabbit hole of what's not working. And I want to help people see that it's possible to stay in a state of thinking that will allow them to make healthier choices for themselves.
That sounds great. So, what do you see most people fundamentally misunderstanding about mental well being?
That they think it's an outside in job. If I take this pill, if I eat that food, if I do this, if I, you know, uh, whatever it is, it's something from the outside. Now, food, as an example, is really important. And so, but I have to have a thought first about making sure I make those right choices of food that I take in. So that's where I flip the script on a lot of it, where we look at life from the inside out. So whatever's happening in my outside world, it's going to be how I view it that's going to determine how I'm feeling about it. So for some people, you made me angry, you did this, or that, because of this situation, I'm feeling this way. Whereas when we flip the script, we become more empowered. We take our power back. We're able to go, yeah, I don't like this situation, and I'm going to do something about it, right? So then I have authority in terms of how I want to lead my life.
So, it seems that there's a lot of misunderstandings out in the world right now,
Yes, very much.
and that seems to really shape people's lives.
Well, and that's a great point. And, I was thinking about parenting recently because we get bombarded. If you have a health issue, we get bombarded with all this information. And as we talked earlier about AI, there's that, everybody's going there trying to figure it all out. But at the end of the day, it's your own wisdom that's going to go, this is the right decision for me for right now. You might make that your decision, and then depending on the results, you're going to make a different decision. But you'll get informed by the outside world. But if you don't settle in to a quieter place from within to then discern that information and make the healthiest choice for you, then you're missing out on a little bit more of a substance in terms of what can be the most helpful for you in that moment.
So, um, when someone is like, we're all kind of pressurized right now,
Yeah.
and they're overthinking and they're burnt out, and, you know, what really changes for them when they begin to see that their experience is really, coming from a place that is unexpected?
Yeah. So we all live from here up. And we think our brain is just, we have to process and analyze everything. And it's exhausting, and the overthinkers, yeah, they sleep well at night, some of them, because they're able to let go for some time, and others, they can't sleep through a night. And so there's a lot of different components that go into that conversation to help with the mind to settle. And it's kind of like the ocean that's behind you, which is absolutely beautiful. Thoughts are like that. Thoughts are like those waves. We can't hold them back, but we can learn how to ride them instead of getting swallowed up by them. And that's a really an important piece to start seeing that my burnout, as an example, is not because I've got too much on my plate. It's more about how I'm thinking about the everything that's on my plate. Am I discerning what's on my plate? Can I take some things off of my plate? So starting to see the power of thought and how it can shift things so that I'm staying in present moment, not in the past of what was before and why is my boss doing this to me or whatever, or the future of if I don't, I'm going to be a terrible person. It's just this present moment on that list. I can only do one thing, and and making that be okay. So when we start to get into that overwhelm, that means we're just allowing all the chatter monkeys to come in and play havoc on our brains. And so when we become the master of our thoughts, not the servant, then we're able to make some changes that are more grounded. It's like we have three brains. We've got the cognitive brain, we need to process things. We have the heart understanding of love and understanding. So if you want to drop into that, I love the breath work we did before we got started. So that just helps you drop in from here down into the body. And then the third brain is the gut brain. And that's the part that most of us don't have much understanding about when it comes to gut instincts. There's that term, gut instincts. And also the nutrition that we put into our guts and how that is creating a loop and comes back up here. So it's a beautiful system that we've been designed with, just like nature, it's been designed perfectly. And so how do we tap back into it so that we can optimize it? Oh, I can't hear.
You talk a lot about the out perspective. What do you see the difference in life repairing instead of from the outside in?
I'm sorry, I missed the question again.
From the inside out perspective, you talked a lot
Yes.
about that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But how do you see the difference between life repairing so challenging,
Mm,
right?
yes.
From that perspective.
Yeah, great. So I was working with one business, and it was a lunch and learn series. So I did, I don't know, I think 6 sessions at this place. And then we were talking about thought and how it creates our experience in the moment, because we're always feeling or thinking. And so this woman came back to the next session and she goes, I finally saw where my worry comes from. So she was talking about how her grandmother worried and then her mom worried and now she worries. So she was noticing where she picked it up along the way. And so her husband was late picking her up one day, or yeah, from our last session. And she went automatically into worry. And then she went like this. She caught herself and recognized the thinking that she was doing that was triggering her worry. And because she caught herself, it's like, well, I could go down that path. Or I can start looking at, there's a lot of traffic. It's 5 o'clock. He's probably just delayed. So she started coming up with all these other ideas as to why he wasn't there right at 5 o'clock. And so that's the power of living inside out. You start to recognize the thoughts you're having. Instead of having a narrow point of view on one thing, you start to open up to possibilities, right? And so that just takes, I find it refreshing in many ways, to be able to open up and going, okay, option A is this, which would be my favorite, but there's B and there's C and there's D. So people can reduce that load of tension, and you can feel it in the body when it gets triggered.
So it sounds like people can actually create lots of choice in their life by not going by those down the same paths that they've always gone down.
Well, I think about it, and it's my work is kind of, you come in and say you're right-handed. You do everything with your right hand. I said, well, while you work with me, you're going to be working with your left hand the whole time. The right hand is routine, it's habits, it's patterns that you've developed in your mental state. And I'm going to get you to shift out of that. Keep the parts that's really good and is working really well for you, but we're going to expand on those pieces and leave the old patterns behind that don't serve you anymore.
So how does a shift like that actually change someone's experience of success?
Well, we live in a world where success is outside in. It doesn't matter if I'm full of anxiety or overwhelmed and stressed out and maxed out and all of those things, as long as I'm achieving the numbers, if I'm getting the grades, if I'm, moving up in the ranks at the workplace. So the outside world is what everybody sees, and we all know how to put the right masks on to perform. But they're a hot mess on the inside. And I see that time and time again. I actually, speaking to a friend of mine who's a fashion stylist, a stylist for people who want to upgrade their clothing. And she goes, I can't tell you how many of them have low confidence, that are full of anxiety. They look good on the outside, they're spending the money on the looks, but on the inside, they're not feeling like success. And that's my job, is to help them tap back into that internal luxury that gives you that success on the inside. And when you've got that two things aligned on the inside and the outside, there's no stopping you then. And life becomes fun.
Yeah. Alignment is incredibly important, especially nowadays.
Very much. Yeah, going inwards and grounding is essential.
Mhm. So, um, obviously, people are going to recognize themselves in what you're describing. So, what would working with you actually help them particularly see and in
Yeah, so I start with
your right?
the inner luxury assessment, where I just do a really holistic view of where you're at in your life, from an internal perspective and how it influences the external life that you're living. And then I show you how three key principles help you tap into that link between your spiritual and your psychological life. That part of you, when we think of spirituality, at the end of the day, it's about inner peace. And I love that feeling of inner peace. And so, how does that bridge into our psychology? How do we make that happen? And right now, I'm actually writing a book with a Dominican sister about this particular topic, because she's Dominican sisters are a cloister, but they're contemplative. And so they just have this beautiful grounding that they do. And that's where I want people to go. But I also know that our psychological life takes us away from that. So we're trying to have these beautiful conversations about weaving those two things together. So people work with me for 3 to 6 months, depending on what's going on in their lives, to help them realign in their mental state so that they can live the lives that feel better, feel more at ease, feel more lighthearted, They can make decisions easier. They have their voice, especially women. You know, we've kind of lost our voice along the way. And so, how do we get it back and how do we sustain it? And how do we set those boundaries if necessary in our lives so that we can live fully who we are? And so I do that through coaching services. And then I also have a retreat here in Canada that if somebody just needs a little getaway, I know caregivers, you know, that sandwich generation of taking care of parents and your kids,
Oh,
and
yeah.
just having that getaway of just decompressing and learning something new to just gain some insights to how you want to live your life fully.
And how long are those retreats? How?
I do them for 4 days because I
Mhm.
know women are busy. So I just want them to be able to, you know, get away for a long weekend, decompress. This is a beautiful little town full of life, and it's right on a huge lake. So lots of walk and talks is how I approach a lot of my work. And that would be something that, and they could stay longer, you know, more than welcome to stay as long as they want. It's a beautiful hotel here with a salt room. Yeah, it's
Oh,
beautiful. The whole wall is, yeah,
so it sounds like you really give people a whole lot of energy by the time that they leave because they've, let the past go, some
yeah,
probably bad habits, and now they're going to reset
yeah. It's
to
definitely a
much more.
reset. Yes, yes, because a lot of us carry trauma, you know, and if it's whatever shape from childhood or divorce or whatever it's been in your life. So, how can we let that go, gain wisdom from whatever that experience was, and transform it into something that really serves your life?
That sounds wonderful. Now I know you have some gifts that you're making available to, everyone that's attending.
So everyone's receiving the quiz, the life balance quiz, life alignment quiz, and so just really finding out where you at. I use that term with mental health from 1 to 10. You know, we're all on a continuum of mental well-being, and so sometimes I'm feeling like a 2 and sometimes I'm an 8, and so it's just fun to sort of look at where you at in your life in terms of that balance. And the other one is to come in for a reset call, a 30-minute call where we will just dive into where you're at and what needs a reset right now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for enlightening us with your wisdom, and I hope everyone really finds inner luxury.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.